Thank you very much. Yes, so I'm Stefanie Preissner. Welcome to this very sunny Saturday morning in Galway. So I have on the panel with me Seána Kerslake, Kirsten Smith, Kiwi, who we're going to call Kiwi, and Louise Kiely. So we're running a little bit behind, so I'm just going to jump into it. You've probably all seen the biog, so you don't need to know who we are. But it might come across as we talk. So Seána is an actor, and then we have Louise, who's casting, and Kiwi, who is a writer and a director. So I guess I just want to start by asking you guys, and I'll ask all of you, kind of how it started. I'll come to you first, Seána, because you're closest to me. So you're an actress, and I just want to know about maybe some characters, or like, where did it all start? Why did you become an actress? And were there any characters in your childhood were you big into reading, or if you want to sit a little bit closer to your mic.
Yes. I was like, are you going to pass me that?
No, this is mine.
Okay. So it started for me, the first feature I did was when I was in college studying art. So it was I'd always done drama and speech and drama, and my mum had sent me to classes and all that kind of thing. But I never really knew people could do it as a job. So when I went, I was in my drama class, and a casting director called Nick McGinley came in, and he put me on tape, and I made a bags of the monologue I was meant to do and all that kind of thing. But he sent the tapes off then to Maureen Hughes, who was cast in Dollhouse with Kirsten Sheridan, and they called me in from there, and I didn't have a clue. I just came in and was like, yeah, hey, and auditioned, and it kind of went from there. And then when I was on set for like the first time doing a feature, I was like, oh, so this is, people do this as a job, and okay, yeah, I like this. And I kind of then realised if I wasn't acting, I don't know what else I'd be doing, because even throughout college I was still doing drama, and it was kind of like, my saviour at the end of the week every Friday to kind of go. But yeah, so that's where it all began kind of for me.
Sorry, I actually just kicked her under the table by accident, and that's what shut her up, and I didn't mean it. It's just that I'm sitting here and I just kicked something, and I was like, oh, she now thinks that I'm sorry. This is a nice segue, and I will move on. That's the same question to Kiwi, who I won't be able to kick. Were you big into reading as a kid, or into films, or what characters kind of did it for you?
Yeah, I grew up on a sailboat, and I didn't have any television, so
wow.
I was always reading and writing little stories, and so that was my way of entertaining myself. I was an only child, and then I moved into poetry when I got into college, and I worked in a video store as a teenager back when there were video stores. They were amazing, and so I loved movies. I mean, that was just my thing. And got to college and realized, poetry is not going to be a very lucrative pursuit. So I could maybe do this thing called screenwriting. And I went to college in Los Angeles and got an internship there where I was reading lots of screenplays. And that's what sort of taught me, like, how to understand the form and understand structure. And I wrote a screenplay in college, and then, ultimately met a writing partner through this internship, that later became a job, and then we just decided to take a stab at it.
Fascinating.
And margaritas one night on cocktail napkins.
And is it the characters that kind of speak to you, like when you were starting out, or more of a plot that kind of comes to you first, or?
I mean, yeah, I think it's having that idea of a great character who finds herself in a funny situation, and that in itself creates some sort of concept, like if you can think of an unusual character being forced to do an extreme thing in order to achieve her goals, then that can create a big idea.
Great. Yeah. And Louise?
Well, I was, speech and drama, always growing up. Lots of drama classes. Anytime I could get on stage, I was like right up there. And then I did law in college, and as much as I was in sort of lectures and stuff, I was in the theatre more. It's just always where my heart was, whether it's kind of on the stage or backstage or whatever it was. And then I went to the Gaiety School of Acting and trained for 2 years, and then was a very successful actor for a few years, clearly. Was an actor for a while. And then just decided one day with a very good friend of mine that we would be casting directors, because we had no idea what that meant, or we thought it sounded cool, and we sort of winged it. And actually Liz Kiely, who's here tonight, our very, very first short film we cast, which was extremely exciting because it was such a, we were like, yeah, we're casting directors, and Liz Gill was very kind that it was our first short we ever cast within like a couple of days of deciding, and we used Reraw nightclub as our stage, I suppose. So there was a bit of a smell of beer, but apart from that, it worked. So beyond that, it was just kind of like, just kind of taking it as it comes.
And since then, you've become one of the most working in casting some of the most, like casting Red Rock, Red Water, Can't Cope, Won't Cope, and A Date for Mad Mary. I'd be really interested to know what are, some of the most challenging roles for women that you've cast in the last few years, and why you think they are.
Okay. I mean, there have been so many over the years, and of course, finding the character on the page is often, so clear, and then of course when you match it with the right actor, it kind of comes to life. I mean, A Day for Mad Mary, which was on her screen last night, obviously that Seána played, was as far as I know,
it was so good.
We're kind of lucky that that's on, because it is an incredible role that Seána, and actually the whole cast, were all women. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was an amazing script and beautifully played, I believe, by the actors. Red Rock, which is the TV series that we do for TV3 on a kind of a long-form basis. It's like a long drama. There's a lot of very strong females in that, whether they be kind of women in trouble. Fiona, who's over there, was in episode 1, I believe, and played a lady with early onset of Alzheimer's. So that was cool and interesting, I believe, to kind of explore. Obviously, the women who are the Garda, they get to kind of be in very interesting positions. So, yeah, because we're lucky enough that my team and I cast a number of projects, there's always something very kind of exciting for a woman there. Actually, more than once. It happens all the time. Yeah, loads of them.
How did you find the ladies from Mad Mary? Was it extensive? How did it come quickly for you?
Yeah,
I didn't mean to hijack that.
That's fine. No, that's totally fine. I'll just sit here.
Obviously Sean I'd met before. You'd been into us a few times. Yeah. Charlie, who plays Charlene, and Seána at the time were in Bow Street, which was then the Factory. So it's this very sort of cool and like successful academy, I suppose, for film actors. Yeah. And obviously we've been in there. The casting for Mad Mary, Darren, the director's in the back there, and he'll agree, I believe, that and the producer obviously, is that it was kind of ongoing until the movie was made, and that's not just, it wasn't sort of like 6 to 8 weeks. It was kind of, we'd go into it and then come back to it over kind of a couple of years. So Seána was auditioned quite a lot, and as the sort of script developed and changed over that time, we sort of found the actors in a very sort of organic way, I think. And by the end of it, obviously it was Darren's call, but it just felt like we had found people who sat very well and matched and brought a different kind of, every person has a different feel. And Siobhan, who plays Leona, for example, the other bridesmaid, she has such sizzle on camera. Yeah. She gives kind of such colour and depth to the world as well. So it was kind of an organic process, I suppose. Yeah.
And so I'll jump to Seána and your experience of playing that role and the other female. I mean, you probably only can play female roles being a female. I mean, no, not necessarily, but, that's a different panel discussion. Do you want to talk about the challenging roles that you've played or what kind of characters you align yourself to?
Well, I have to say I've been really lucky with the roles that I've landed. Like I was saying with Dollhouse, that was like my first feature, and it was a lead in that, and she was kind of like a troubled young girl trying to find her place in the world, much like Mad Mary, which like when we got the script to that, I was kind of like, oh, this is great, because I mean, not only is she a woman, so I get a chance to play her, but she's like, there's so many things, there's so many parts of being a human being, like, that I got to explore in her. So that was amazing. And then I just finished this series by Stefanie Preissner called Can Cope, Won't Cope. And in that, I play a girl called Aisling, and, you know, she's kind of figuring out. So I've been really, really fortunate to have, like, some really big, strong female roles.
And Kirsten, I'll jump to you about writing them and directing them.
I'm taking off my tights as a man's in this.
Okay, that is your prerogative, and you do what you want.
Just getting comfortable.
I suppose the process of writing kind of those sort of strong female characters or directing them, getting those performances out of an actress. What has been your experience of that, or do you find it?
I mean, I just think it's really about casting. It's the marriage of the character with the right person, and when that happens, I mean, that's the magic of movie making, right? Mm-hmm. So in terms of extracting it, I think ideally you don't have to extract too much if you've made the right decision in terms of who you're.
I suppose, but the casting director is really relying on that character jumping off a page, and so then it does come back to the writer of being like getting that character and in all of their glory onto the page. And is that something that, like, do you sit and think like, I have to create a really strong female character, or it just comes?
I mean, that's what I want to see in a movie. Yeah. So that's the goal anyway. But you know, I had a really rewarding experience getting to create a character with an actress, Anna Faris, who I don't know if you guys know well, but we had like a coffee meeting with her and said, we love your work, and if there's any, you know, if you have any character ideas or movie ideas, let us know. And she said, I always wanted to play a Playboy bunny who gets kicked out of the mansion, and then she's like, and then maybe she gets addicted to drugs, and then she's maybe raped by a priest, and I was like, what is happening? She was going down this very dark hole with it, and she's like known for her comedic abilities. So we said, okay, let's think about it, and then we went back and found an old idea of a very uptight, buttoned-up woman who goes to a sorority. Do you have sororities here? Maybe not.
No, but we know about them, right?
Yeah. And becomes a house mother for a group of wild and crazy girls. So we thought, maybe we should flip it and have the house bunny be with like very uptight sorority girls. And then we came back to her and said, okay, so maybe not the drugs or the raping part, but what if you were a sorority house mother? And she was like, oh, she would say, okay, well, tell me a little more about it. And then we would meet and collaborate and talk through, and we built that whole story together over the course of about 5 months, and then went out, the three of us, and pitched it to studios. And it took us about 21 pitches to finally find someone who would buy it. But that was so fun, being in collaboration with the person who came up with the character, and getting to kind of put on a little stage play. Every time we'd walk into a room, we'd start to tell the story, and she'd be like, what should I wear today? And the green short skirt and the pink shoes.
And the Playboy ears. So I'm just going to jump back to you, Louise. Do you see, and I'm aware that this is kind of a leading question, but I was wondering about the differences you notice or don't notice between male actors and female actors when they come to stand in front of you to audition. That's the question.
Yeah. Men generally have short hair. No, you know, that's, yeah, I'm trying to, okay.
I suppose I'm leading you towards discussing things that we can do as women for our own confidence in putting ourselves out there. There's been a lot of statistical studies about like the alpha personality being like, it's not just that it's men that have that. Some women have it, but across the board it tends to be more masculine. Right. And women, like the difference in pay scale and the difference in opportunity is often because women are less like confident in putting themselves forward for things, asking for the raise, asking for the job. And I'm just wondering if that's something that you notice in casting.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not entirely sure that it is. I would think, as a sort of a general male, female note to people, the more prepared you are, the more kind of work you put in advance of coming in for the meeting, the more you realise that we want you there. We really want you to be good. I really want you to be good. Do you know what I mean? That the people in that room are keeping their fingers crossed. So if that gives you some form of confidence, whether it's a woman or a man, and if you look at the page and say, okay, so I don't have blonde hair. Do you know what I mean? That, so therefore I'm written out. Or, you sitting outside and you might see somebody who you saw on TV last week, and that little voice in your head, which is just a little bit of insecurity or a sort of slight lack of confidence, sort of writes yourself off a tiny bit. Now is the time for you to hear that please don't do that. Do you know what I mean? So whether you're a woman or a man, what I would ask is that you prepare really, really well and know that we want you to be comfortable and we want you to be safe and we want you to be great. And people that work alongside me, and I don't think that it's a unique thing that we have, but it's really important for us to make you feel safe and to take as long and be nurturing within that space. So I'm not entirely sure if it's a you have to have a slightly more alpha personality or not, because to be honest, to create a diverse, interesting 3D world, we need all different types of people and we need all different types of energy, but to get that part, I suppose all I would just ask is preparation and a bit of self-possession and knowing that we really want you to be great, because you're there for a reason. Do you know what I mean? We've done a lot of work to get you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's interesting as when I used to act, or when I do act, seeing the characters. I suppose the reason that I wrote Can't Cope, Won't Cope was because I didn't see myself represented in Irish television. And so I feel that it's very... I felt like it's not very useful for me to see characters on film and television always make the right decisions. That's just not useful for me. So when it comes to me making a big fuck up in my life, I'm like, oh, I'm the only one who does this because everyone else's life is so rosy. And so... but when I would get a script, the sides, it would always be... the male characters always seemed more diverse and more deep, and I just remember, and from a very young age, being like, why? I wish I was a man. I wish I could do those really cool characters, not just stand in the corner. And also, I used to be heavier, and so that also counted me out. And so I guess my question coming to you, Seána, and I'm just trying to work out how to phrase it, would be. Would you notice, in the characters that you're sent for, apart from the ones that you've landed, right, the ones that, and maybe there are earlier ones that you haven't landed, or across your theatre work, because I know that you do that a lot. Do you notice the difference between the male characters that you'd be reading opposite and the female ones that you're playing?
A lot of the time, yeah. You would get a script and you'd kind of be like, oh. And that's terrible, but you're kind of looking for something within it, and sometimes, yeah, it is, you're the girlfriend or the sidekick or the kind of secondary character, and that's, there are different roles you have to play, and that's cool, but sometimes, I have seen scripts that women characters, I'm kind of like, well, why that could not be a woman? Why couldn't that be a woman? You know what I mean? If they could just take gender sometimes off things, but to give us
just
the chance.
On that note, we do ask that question very, very
regularly.
Yeah. As in, and it's never met. I mean, resoundingly by a producer or director with no, it definitely has to be that. And when it comes to sort of detective, inspector, nurse, doctor, lawyer, everybody, all those. I mean, especially in television, it can absolutely be all of those things. Yeah. So we do make sure to kind of...
Yeah, and you see it more often, especially here. I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world, but here you do see that more, and it really is, I feel, changing a lot of the time, because I know you guys do that.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Best person for the job.
Yeah.
Unless, you know what I mean? Unless it's
I have to say, though, from writing Can't Cope, Won't Cope, and it's probably just me, but naturally I would always be like, man one, man on train, man this. Really? And then, and then I would be like, hang on, why? Like, she's just asking him for a phone charger. Why does that have to be a man? Right. You know? And it's like my own, I don't know, it's just like extras or extra people are men, you know? Yeah. And then it was the
unconscious bias, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have that when you're writing, or are you way better than me?
I think
in terms of like feminism.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think we all do. You know, it's just like it's the way that people are wired. I mean, I think in Hollywood, like all studio executives have been wired that way to look at for when thinking about who to direct a large scale action movie, for instance. If it's going to be a woman, there's Catherine Bigelow, and that's it. You know. So that's changing now. There's been so much written about it and about kind of exploding that unconscious bias on the part of people who hire filmmakers. Mm-hmm. And it's a big topic, and I think it is changing.
I think it is changing, but it's changing slowly, and I know from my own experience that it hasn't changed within, like, even though I'm all for it and I'm creating radical female characters, I have to admit that when it comes down to like the minutiae, or when I'm imagining a crowd scene, it's mainly men in my head, and that has to be kind of switched. Okay, so I'm kind of done with my questions. So I'm gonna open it up to the floor. Yes, I'm going to repeat the questions because this is being recorded for.
My question is for you. I'm American, and for my generation, 10 Things I Hate About You, She's the Man, Legally Blonde, like really set the sort of feminist tone for my generation, and so I want to say thank you.
That's really nice to hear.
Thank you. I mean, 10 Things I Hate About You just is great, and Legally Blonde, like, come on, it's a Broadway musical now. It's so good, and just how, because I mean that was 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, was it difficult to get those films pitched or like done?
You know what's funny is it wasn't actually, because in that time, well, it was sort of this weird. Remember, teenage movies were having this big resurgence in the late '90s, and I think Disney wanted to make a teen movie. They had like a corporate mandate to make a teen movie because Clueless had come out, and Romeo and Juliet was kind of percolating and about to come out, and so we were in the right place at the right time. But, you know, there was a lot of discussions with that script about making sure that Kat was likable. And in the original script, both of her parents were there in the script, and they said, you need to get rid of her mother so we understand why she's, you know, so angry all the time. So I think it ultimately helped the story, and we found a way to make it work. But I thought that was funny. You know, there's always that question of, we want to make sure she's more likable. In Legally Blonde, we added in scenes very late in the process to make sure she was likable and intelligent. And it's funny that, you know, those were ongoing conversations. And again, I think, you know, one of the scenes is in the store when she's like kind of outsmarting the shop girl that came very late in the writing, and it's a beloved scene. So sometimes those notes end up really serving you, but it's funny now too. I mean, someone asked me last night, okay, so you've been part of this change in some way, which I didn't really realize was happening at the time. I was just writing what I believed in and wanted to write in the movies I wanted to see. But, you know, where do you fit now? How do you go forward in your life when awareness is here and heightened? How do you like move on and not be stuck in? So I'm taking suggestions.
Well, I guess on that note, it's just kind of like continue to like write what you want to see, and like as you change as the artist, you kind of shape public opinion on things. Thank you for your question. Does anyone else have any questions for anyone on the panel? Yes, at the back.
I just wanted to ask Louise, Street is a different sort of area because
Did you
we're
cast
looking for
Sing Street?
musicians and- But for the likes of Red Rock,
Stop. No, don't even. No. Thank
good.
Do you want to stand up, Caroline?
That's Sing Street.
Hi.
Just for the likes of Red Rock, I'm just wondering, is that something that you go to the production team with? Is that your idea to sort of put a big search out, or
Yeah.
is that something that the director comes to? But
No, that's generally from us, to be honest. Now it's not like it's a novel or new idea,
But here it is, isn't it?
I don't know. I suppose, like, to be honest, I can only kind of examine the projects that we've worked on. But each project, so there's two that you mentioned there. Okay, so Red Rock, I'd never worked on a very long television series at all, and when Element Paula from Element rang and was like, so there's this TV series, and I was like, yeah, how many episodes? She went 82, and I went, right, okay, that'll be no problem. So what we had to do with Red Rock at this beginning was find actors who are beyond the regulars, people who are kind of interested in coming in as guests, sort of interesting faces, all different, you know what I mean, accents and looks and all of that. So of course, if you look at maybe actors on agents' books in Dublin, for example, you'd run out of numbers very fast. So we had to be innovative in our way. So that's when we kind of went around the country. And then Sing Street was actually, speaking of musicals, I was kind of 3 or 4 weeks into the casting, and the band have to play, do you know what I mean? And they're young, and they had to be, like all those things. So we had to put a band together, essentially. So we started with the music rather than the acting. So like most of the band members actually had never acted before. We kind of gave them like tutorials along the way, and kind of sat down and talked to them about character and just being human and all that stuff. But the musical, about 4 weeks in, I went, oh my God, I'm casting a musical. So I was like, I should have realised that at the beginning. I was like, yeah, I really should have. Yeah. So that was, I mean, look, it's the same thing. If we had gone to just the usual 4 or 5 schools, it just would have been impossible. So having the big, and also, to be honest, I'd heard years ago Roz Hubbard talk about The Commitments, and The Commitments is one of my favourite films of all time. So I totally know it off by heart. So Roz had talked about this big, huge open casting that had happened in Dublin, and Karen, who works alongside me, had kind of remembered the time of people queuing up with their guitars on their back, and I remember thinking that was super cool. So when it came along, I was like, oh, imagine if we could do it like The Commitments, and we did. It was cool.
Round of applause for Louise. Anything else from the floor? Yes.
Yes, for Kirsten. Just in your experience, again, not your films, but just in your experience in meetings, I mean, certainly in script meetings, have you come up against much mansplaining? Because, I mean, I've taken meetings where I've made the contribution I felt that one should as a writer, and then be told you don't listen, or you talk too much. And
Oh, really?
I know certainly that I wouldn't have taught that as much as the guys, or guys talking over you, and then having
Yeah.
to...
I mean, men always talk over
Yes.
women, I feel like. Yes. Well, you just have to outfox. Well, let them get their things out that they need to say, and then, then you can make your point. But, I mean, I think if someone is speaking over you like that, you can say, I'm not done. Please don't interrupt. I'm not quite finished yet. You can hold that ground, obviously. Or let them do it and then sit silently and be a little passive-aggressive about it, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I've had a number of weird things happen, but I always felt like, a little using the female charm offensive can be a good thing, and that it's just there's warmth and light that we have that men need, and that's what we bring to the party too. So we don't have to always clash with them. I think it's kind of balance, right? You reading the room, just psychoanalyzing someone and understanding a little bit of how to work with them, how to navigate it. I know, but you do have to be a little bit of a psychologist as a writer, I think. And as a human, really.
This podcast was brought to you by Film Ireland in partnership with Women in Film and Television Ireland.